We are only 3 days away from the NBA trade deadline, and trade rumors for the Chicago Bulls keep popping up. The most recent one, could the Bulls actually make a trade for Karl-Anthony Towns? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why the Chicago Bulls should be looking for clarity at this trade deadline and how they can find it. We're going to talk about all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag and how the Portland Trail Blazers have made a move that could solidify the Bulls having 2 first-round picks in this draft. All that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Derek Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. We got a jam-packed episode planned for you guys today. We got a lot to talk about. The Chicago Bulls have a interesting scenario that could pop up here at the trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls, and it's one that I didn't expect either. And I don't know if it's one that I actually like either for this Bulls team, but it would be bringing in a talent influx, even though it wouldn't necessarily be fixing some of the Bulls' biggest issues. But let's start off talking about this, right? One of the reasons why a lot of Bulls fans are at the place now where they're ready for another reset for this Bulls team is because of the emotional whiplash this team continually provides this team, right? I mean, when you look at this team from the Last Dance era to the Baby Bulls era to the Derrick Rose era, then to the brief 3 Alphas period, right, and then the reset around Zach LaVine, over the last 10 to 15 years, it's been way more disappointment than anything for the Chicago Bulls franchise. And while it's still there, if you just look at the last night's loss against the Miami Heat, whereas the night before that we had an emotional win against the Miami Heat, this Bulls team still has not gotten to a place of any type of shape, form of or consistency. This was supposed to be a season to where we understood that the young players took a step forward, right? That the young players were a big reason why. And while the Bulls aren't that far below 500, if they go on another run after the All-Star break like they did last year, they'll finish the season above 500. But that's an if, right? And that's always still, we should be talking about more certainty with this Bulls team. And while injuries have undoubtedly played a role in where this team is this season, it still goes back to even taking out the injuries. If we lost because of injuries, cool. We still don't have a consistent level of play or effort that this Bulls team is. Bulls fans are tired of being stuck in the middle. The Bulls right now sit at 24-26 on the season. 24-26 on the season. We're 9th in the Eastern Conference. Yet again, the same place that we've been for a while. And while the route that we've gotten there is different, and I will die on that hill that it's not the same just because it's the same record. But at the same time, how can I blame anybody for being pissed off at being stuck in the middle again, right? Yes, of course, Matas Buzelis has made steps. And if you really look at it, Matas Buzelis' defense lately over the last month or so has really taken some considerable steps defensively, but that's inconsistent as well, right? We know what Josh Giddey is and how he can organize an offense. Great. This was supposed to be a year where Coby White came from the same role last year into the same role this year for the first time in 3 years, him having the same role that he left off to the prior season. But due to injuries, due to inconsistencies on his part, a number of things, that has not been there. So yes, the injuries have tested the balance, and that's legitimate. The injuries to Trey, to Josh Giddey, to Zach Collins, to Jalen at one point, to Coby White, like everybody's been injured at some point or missed some considerable amount of time on this season, but still, you're still sitting in the same place where you're below 500, right? And it seems like for the first time in a while that AK is not going into this trade deadline pretending that almost anybody on this roster is untouchable. Now, I don't think that everybody's available either, and they shouldn't be. I know you have Bulls fans that leave comments like, everybody should be available but X player. And it's like, yeah, but that's not realistic, right? You don't reset a whole entire roster. You're going to have some holdovers that stay. You're going to have that. It's going to happen, right? There's no way around it. You're going to have some holdovers that stay on your roster. But the thing that you should be doing as a franchise that is stuck in the place that the Bulls are stuck at, you should at least be listening to offers for everybody. And that's where the Chicago Bulls are. And I hate to tell y'all this, Bulls fans that are also, we can't possibly trade Trey Jones. There's no way we can possibly trade Jalen Smith. Why are we trading those guys? We should be trading P. Will. Who the fuck wants P. Will, right? And so if you want a situation where you're getting value, you have to listen to what the market is telling you. And there is a world. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys. There's absolutely a legitimate world in which Tre Jones and or Jalen Smith are moved and Patrick Williams and Nikola Vucevic are still on the roster after the trade deadline. But guess what? If you're going into a place where you're prioritizing the asset and return, those are the ones that should be moved, right? So you can't say that you want the Bulls to strike while the value's high, and then every time the value's high on a player say, oh my God, no, we can't possibly move this guy. Listen, Jalen and Tre have been great, have been amazing, and if they stay around here, they have more than earned their spot here on the Chicago Bulls roster if they stay. But just because that they have earned the right to stay doesn't mean that depending on what the Bulls' outlook is at the trade deadline, that they will. If the Bulls are truly in the spot where they're gaining assets to either make a bigger move later or to just say, hey, this mix ain't working. Let's stack ourselves with draft picks. Guess what? That means heads are going to roll, and some of those heads are going to be players that we actually like because that's where the value is. You got to think about it. Other NBA teams, they don't want players that nobody likes. They don't want players that are playing bad. They're going to want players that are playing well, right? So there is a world in which that happens. Ayo Dosunmu in talks. We all want Ayo to stay. Ayo Dosunmu in trade talks. The Bulls are listening to offers. And what the Bulls have to do is they have to weigh the return and how you actually value those assets you're getting in return versus your runway with this player and how well you can actually build to take most advantage of this player being here. And we got to see. We've already seen the Bulls do something uncharacteristic. That is act as a facilitator in the Sacramento Kings and Cleveland trade, and they got 2 second-round picks out of it. Not nothing that's great or amazing or to write home about, but it is stacking assets for yourself that maybe can be used down the road. More on that in a second, right? So now, with the Bulls having control over all their first-round picks, over $100 million in potential cap space in the summer of 2026, this needs to be a calculated trade deadline for the Chicago Bulls. This deadline should not be about necessarily saving the season unless you make a big swing. It should be about stacking the deck for yourself and choosing between a competitive reset and a total teardown. Those are the two options here at the Chicago Bulls. A competitive reset, which means you're still going to keep some pieces around there. It's not going to be the thing where people want to see a whole blow up and rebuild. They're not doing that. But a competitive reset between now and the offseason, right, or the total teardown, those are really the two options, right? The sell high options, Tre, Jalen, Ayo Dosunmu, right? Those are the guys that you're looking at that are sell high options for the Chicago Bulls. Medium tier players, maybe Kevin Huerter, a team looks like Kevin Huerter can help them. Maybe Zach Collins can help them. Or you do something that we've heard on and you make a trade with the seconds that you acquire. You go after Day'Ron Sharpe. You go after Yves Missi. You go after something like that. But I want to be clear here. There's a reason why players like Ayo, Jalen, and Tre are players that may be the most likely to be moved, even more than Coby White. Again, I say might be the most likely, doesn't mean that they will be. But it's the bargain factor of it, right? It's the money left on the deal. Tre Jones signed a 3-year, $24 million deal that has no increases, and the last year being a Tim option. That is hugely flexible for teams, and especially with the way that he's playing. Jalen has 1 year after the season at a little over $9 million. Hugely flexible. Now, Ayo, he's on a little over $7 million contract, but at the same time, you do have to re-sign him, but it's not going to be the same as Coby White's $30 million reportedly that he's asking for. So it's that part that you're looking at. The bargain factor on what those return could be for those players, and they're probably looking for low-tier first-round picks for all of those guys, and maybe more in the case of Ayo Dosunmu. If you really want the Bulls to avoid the middle trap, right? The thing is, you want to avoid the middle, guess what? You got to break some eggs to do so. And so while I love the guys that we talked about, if you truly want to get out of the middle and eventually have the thing that I've always judged AK back by is he is hesitant to take the smaller step backward to take the longer-term step forward in the way that you view the team. And that's something that AK is going to have to be better about, and we see if he can. 3, clearing the runway for your young players, right? In making moves for Jalen or any of those guys, you clear away more stops for your younger players. And that could be what you're looking at for, we'll see, right? There are 2 scenarios right now in which the Bulls could trade Tre Jones. One is the Minnesota, right? We know that that's a team that's definitely out for it. And reportedly, you can get Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon Jr., and 2 second-round picks back for Tre Jones. And we'll see. Now, that those 2 second-round picks, okay, Rob Dillingham is a player that they don't really believe in, but hey, Tre right now is our backup point guard. Could you develop Rob Dillingham into your backup point guard because he doesn't look like a starter? Maybe. But again, you're taking the high value part of that. You are trying to take a player that was just a lottery pick and trying to now develop him, and you're taking a bite at the apple. I don't personally think there's a spot for him here with being that, but hey, Trey Jones fit in, so maybe Rob Dillingham can fit that role. Again, you're taking a smaller step back this season, but adding a talent that was still, when he came into the league, people looked at Rob Dillingham as a player that really can develop into not a traditional point guard, but a different type of point guard, a hybrid point guard where scoring is kind of the thing he does most. The question with Rob Dillingham becomes, at that size, is he going to ever develop into that player? And that's what you got to see. But this is a guy that was drafted in the top 10, and we know how AK loves to fall in love with his former lottery pick. So there's a scenario there. Next up, Phoenix. Phoenix reportedly is looking for a point guard at this trade deadline, and they can get a protected 2031 first round pick back and salary filler. Right now, Phoenix doesn't necessarily want to give up an unprotected pick, but if you get protections on that, looking at how Phoenix has played this year, maybe you're going to get that pick at, right? They're capped out. They're looking for a cheap ball distributor there, but that's kind of the latest rumors in regards to that, right? But I think overall with this trade deadline, the biggest win possible for the Bulls is simply put picking and choosing an actual direction, not the facade of a direction, an actual direction. And that leads us to this next rumor that popped up, and that is that Karl-Anthony Towns could be emerging as a realistic target for the Chicago Bulls. And I'm telling you what, right now, I did not expect to hear this. I didn't expect to see this when I was coming down here today in the studio to get my topics ready for today. I have alerts set up for Bulls. So for anybody who ever wants and says, hey, how does Hayes get out this content so fast? What is Hayes doing to get this content out so fast? It's because I have alerts set up for everything Chicago Bulls, meaning when Bulls news drop, usually I get it on my phone, or when I sit down on my computer, it's right there for me, right? But this is one that popped up today that I looked at, and I'm just like, I did not expect to hear this. I didn't expect to see anything with this. I'm trying to get the writer. This is from Andrew Hanlon, who just posted this article 11 hours ago as of this recording, that said that Karl-Anthony Towns is emerging as a realistic trade target for the Chicago Bulls as the Knicks continue to explore moving the All-NBA center. New York's asking price has dropped considerably, which has opened the door for the Bulls to take an arbitrage swing. The Knicks will be content acquiring salary matching players and maybe small draft compensation, according to James L. Edwards of The Athletic, if they trade their once franchise big man. Considering Chicago's serious need for both a center and a superstar, along with his asset cupboard full of expiring contracts and draft picks, pursuing a deal for Towns is worth a legitimate look. The Bulls can finally fix a glaring hole on their roster. Okay, let's look at this, right? I want to take off the fan cap, and I want to provide analysis for this. If the New York Knicks, and keep in mind, Karl-Anthony Towns is a very flawed center. He does nothing for the Chicago Bulls defense. He does nothing for the Chicago Bulls, rim protection or anything like that. But the question becomes about, with a point guard like Josh Giddey, right now, I do think in this type of move, you would probably have to move Coby, because then you want Ayo in your starting lineup. You want as much defense in your starting lineup. But Karl-Anthony Towns, a player that on his career averages 23 points per game on 52% shooting from the field and 39% shooting from three. Unlike Nikola Vucevic, he actually is a good volume three-point shooter, and he does that several seasons, shooting above 40% from three. He is one of, legitimately, per statistics, one of the best, all-time best shooting big man in league history, right? He does average a block and a half per game for his career as well, even though the last 3 seasons he's averaged less than a block per game over those last 3 seasons. So take that for what you're worth. He also averages a near steal per game in that time as well, and doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and around 3.5 assists per game for his career as well. So Karl-Anthony Towns is a talent, undoubtedly. He is a talented basketball player. The question becomes about his limitations. We know what Karl-Anthony Towns can be in a pick and roll. The question and the fear that I have is, would trading for a 30-year-old Karl-Anthony Towns be similar to when we traded for a 29-year-old Nikola Vucevic, and the return on investment on that is just going to get lower and lower and lower? Now, what's some things that work out for that, right? If the Knicks are truly looking for draft compensation, keep in mind, the Knicks are so far into the luxury tax that it seems like at this point, that's what they'd be looking for. My thought process is this, though. I don't think they just trade Karl-Anthony Towns to the Bulls outright. If the Bulls really want to make a shot at Karl-Anthony Towns, to me, it could only come via a 3-team trade. And that is if the Knicks actually trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then at that point, the Milwaukee Bucks are like, we don't really want Karl-Anthony Towns. He's 30. We're going to a complete rebuild. It's going to be years before we're really competitive again. At that point in time, would the Bulls then be interested in being the 3rd team where they take on Karl-Anthony Towns? They put out picks in that deal where Milwaukee gets the picks instead of the player in Karl-Anthony Towns, and we send them an expiring contract. If that is the case, Would they be willing to take on the expiring of Nikola Vucevic? If we're giving them an unprotected first-round pick, would they be willing to take on the contract of Patrick Williams in that too? Because they ain't going to have to pay anybody anytime soon. They're probably going to look to flip Miles Turner. And I already know some of y'all are going to say, can we get Towns and Miles Turner? I put that in the trade machine. It can happen with the number of expiring contracts the Bulls have, but that's a tight needle to thread, right? But with that said, just focus on the Karl-Anthony Towns part of this. If you can get Karl-Anthony Towns, would you get him? And the question that I have in that is, we got Vooch, and we always knew we needed a defensive power forward next to Vooch. We never got. Is Jalen enough? If you hold on to Jalen Smith, is Jalen and Karl-Anthony Towns enough in that front court? Like I said, I know some of y'all are going to say, hey, Miles Turner, his rim protection, can we do all? I don't know if that's going to be a legitimate thing. Like I said, very tight needle to the thread here, but it could be something interesting to watch out here. If he's a third-team All-NBA player, he's been an All-Star before, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. If Edwards' report is true and the Bulls can actually get involved in that trade and get Karl-Anthony Towns back, is that the type of move that you want to see for the Bulls? It doesn't make them a championship contender at all. I wouldn't say that. But if they just want expiring salary and picks back, if you maintain a team of Josh Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, because I do think you may have to give up Coby in that trade, we'll see what happens, right? But if you are able to keep Josh Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, Modest Buzelis, Jalen Smith, Karl-Anthony Towns, you still have Trey Jones on your bench. You may even still have Zach Collins on your bench as well. Like, what do you look like at that? How do you view this Bulls team at that point in time? That's what you have to ask yourself. And I tell you what, it's intriguing. I don't think it necessarily automatically fixes us and makes us a contender in the East, but it's a step in the direction. But that is a huge contract for the Bulls and Karl-Anthony Towns to get in here. And if you do try to get that done, I tell you what, that would once again put the ownership on the Bulls to say, hey, this is our window now. We got to live in that window. Karl-Anthony Towns is making $53 million this year, $57 million next season, and then has a player option for in 2027-28 for $61 million. He's probably going to pick that up. So that is a tight needle to the thread for the Chicago Bulls, but is it one that's worth it? And I want to hear from you guys on that one down below. Now, something that also could help facilitate that is the Portland Trailblazers pick. And the Bulls have gotten closer and closer to getting that pick. The Portland Trailblazers made a move the other day that is clearly sets that they are setting themselves up to be buyers at this NBA trade deadline. Now, the question then becomes about, is this something that the Bulls can take advantage of and leverage in trades, or do they just keep it? If you're armed with 2 first-round picks in a deep draft like 2026, that does a lot for your team. But it also gives you more assets and flexibility because there are going to be other teams that could be looking to pivot as well. And like we talked about, being the third team in a trade that sends Giannis to New York, if it looks like if Milwaukee looks at that and says, we'll take your own pick, Bulls, and we'll take the Portland Trailblazers pick, you got and match salary, you guys can have Karl-Anthony Towns, we'll take the picks, we don't want them. It's an alluring thing. And I think that AK really should be looking at this like a gift horse, because if Portland, which is going all in, all the moves that they've made a signal that they are really trying to do it. If we get that second first-round pick, what does that then look like for the Chicago Bulls? And that's another asset that we're looking at for this team, and we'll see how it's going to shake out. But let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. As always, let's dive into this mailbag, man. We got this first one. This one's from the 773.
Hey, what's up, brother? How you doing? Man, big fan of your content, big fan of your show, love your insight. But got a couple things I wanted to share with you, some counterpoints to some of the content that you've been posting recently. So first off, let me say this. The Bulls are a team without a direction, without a vision, and also without a leader. It seems like they're a rudderless ship just kind of floating. But I'll try and keep this short as I share some of these points that I want to bring up with you. First off, let's talk about the Zion, Giannis, and other superstars or stars that might be available. First off, when you have stars that are available, it's going to come with some form of baggage, whether they're injured, might be perceived attitude with their team, so forth. But again, that's why they're available. The Bulls don't have the cachet to be able to pick and choose and be overly selective. The Bulls haven't had a star in years. With Zion, I know there's this talk about Zion, but one thing about Zion is he brings a certain level of gravity to the floor when he's out there. Right now, the Bulls have nobody that brings gravity to the floor, meaning your defense doesn't have to shift to cover them, to guard them. Zion, same thing with Giannis. Giannis and Zion are both run stoppers. Who's the guy that can get downhill when the other team is on the run, that can get downhill, not just get a basket, but get to the foul line, stop those runs. The Bulls don't have that. Right now, you can guard all the Bulls players heads up. The defense doesn't really have to shift. Coby, if he's got it going, maybe he's that guy for that night. But Giannis, Zion, those are some guys that you can trade for potentially. That can shift the way that the Bulls play. Right now, like I said, the way the Bulls play, no team has to game plan for an individual every night. It might be a certain matchup that they have to game plan for that particular game, but the Bulls don't have that guy. So I think that the Bulls need to be trading for a star and bringing somebody in here. And if you trust your coach, you trust your GM, first of all, your coach is going to put them in a position to succeed. Your GM, if you trust your GM, then your GM is going to go out there and get the pieces to fit around that player. We could talk about what did or didn't happen in Milwaukee, but Milwaukee has been shown to be a competent front office organization. Same thing with the Pelicans. So I think a change of thing for both will do them well. Also, one thing that we've seen is AK is really, really good at identifying average to mediocre. So I equate it to right now you got all these fringe pieces, but no house. It's like having a house and you got all these pieces that make up a nice fence, but you don't have a house.
This was absolutely supposed to be a year where the direction was made more clear. Not saying that you had your straight line direction, but it got made more clear, right? Now, I completely disagree with you. The Bulls don't have the right to be choosy. Getting a star is not enough anymore. We've seen it. I'm sorry. Look at the team Giannis is on now. Look at the team that Zion's on now. When you say that they're showing themselves to be an incompetent front office, have the Bulls not? It's about what you give up. Now, when we heard that Zion was available for expirings, I was all for it. But to act like just getting a star is enough in the modern NBA, it's not. How many stars have we seen on teams that aren't able to make it out the first round? You have to keep assets, whether it's the players around it or you have to keep some future assets to where you can add to the team. Being all in and making a move for a big star that has a huge contract can be limiting. And then, yeah, cool. Now you got a star, but you're still in the play-in every single year. And we've seen that happen with other teams that actually have a legitimate star. So I'm not of the mind that it's just get a star just to get a star. How you get them is equally as important because what you have left to try to build around those guys is as important as anything else. So, yeah, the Bulls have a lot of players, but if you have to give up a lot of those players to get that star and you're left with bones, then you can be like Giannis is in Milwaukee, a team that has a star but isn't going anywhere, right? And even for Zion, I think with Zion and his injury history, yeah, he does a lot when he's on the basketball court, but you still have to field a team that's good enough to win because Zion's going to miss 20 to 25 plus games every single year. So you have to have enough of a team still around him that is still competitive in the Eastern Conference, even when Zion's not on the court. Otherwise, you're not going to be anywhere. So that's my thought process. Just kind of a little pushback. Good conversation. I'd love to hear your response and your rebuttal to that. Let me know how you guys feel. All right, with that said, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from from Ricky.
How you doing, hey? It's Ricky Carroll. I ain't talked to you in a couple of years. Last time I talked to you, I told you I hadn't seen any Bulls games, only 2 out the whole year. Well, anyway, what I called to say to you is that I kind of talked to you about this a couple of years ago, about Patrick Williams, about Millie, and about that. And that we were feeling this way about this. Billy couldn't win at Oklahoma. What if people think that he'll win with a team here in Chicago? The man is garbage. I've been saying he's garbage for the last 3 years. I've been complaining about it. And people said it was complaints. It was facts, bro. The man is straight up garbage, okay? And his players don't play for him. They don't want to play for him because he don't stand up behind them. It's like you're working a job somewhere and you got a supervisor. I don't care what kind of job it is. You busting your ass and somebody else comes from another apartment and do something wrong, and your supervisor don't stick up for you. Go along with everybody else and smile and grin in your face and tell you what you should have been doing when you was doing it. Just so he won't. And I'm talking about the referees. He will not get in their face to say anything. You want to be friends. Back to what's important. Coby got to get out of here right now. Oh, listen to your broadcast. I have said this earlier. If he don't, his value won't be nothing because he cannot play up on the building. Okay? The building system sucks. and I was listening to you. They shot one regular jump shot, and the rest of them was threes. How can you keep on missing threes and keep on taking them? How can you do that? And you see what Miami did tonight? They took Ayo off the game. Every time he went to the basket, he went to the free throw, was two people in front of his face. That's coaching. He cut off Billy's main weapon, and he couldn't do anything else. And Coby, he done lost his damn mind. If he was worried about trade, whatever he's worried about, he better get over it. Because the Bulls need to send Coby away next week. Like Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, before his trade is back to go down. Thanks for listening, bro. Peace.
First of all, Rick, you got to stop drinking, bro. Like, you literally just left me a voicemail like a month ago, and I listened to it and I actually agreed with everything you said. We just talked a month ago. You said you haven't called in for a couple of years. Stop drinking, bro. Stop drinking. I'm having fun with you, Ricky. Calm down. Don't get your panties in a twist. Now, as far as Billy Donovan, yeah, Billy says all the right things, but when it's time for execution, they're never there. And that is a problem with Billy Donovan's head coaching. The level of play and a standard has not been set by coaching, and that's why we see some of the things that we do. On top of Billy Donovan isms, where he doesn't know how to draw up inbounds plays to save his fucking life, and we come out of timeouts with some of the worst plays I've ever seen. So yeah, we'll see though. Right? Like I don't. There's some rumors starting to pop up that maybe the Bulls could be looking at some other coaches. I'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode, but we'll see what happens there. But all right, let's get into this last one, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Reginald. Just calling in after the Bulls win against Miami. And apparently a trade was done with the, of course, Sacramento Kings, and also involved the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the only thing the Bulls got was, Dario Saric and 2 second-round picks, but, I think they're probably just going to waste Saric. I mean, he hasn't been the same since his injury like 5 years ago. AK finally going after a second round picks is a step in the right direction, considering he usually just gives them away for nothing. But I'm glad to hear he's at least thinking of the future, I guess. When it comes to the Bulls win over Miami, I got to give props to the guys who, showed up and fought from start to finish. Guys who had big games, Dalen Terry, and of course Yuki, who, let's be honest, we all were shouting Yuki's name the minute he got on the court. We were hoping that he'd make this team, and if it wasn't for that injury, he probably would have stayed on the two-way deal, and he probably got more time in the game, during the season than he has already, of course. And hopefully the Bulls get healthy soon. But until then, I don't want Billy to overthink things like he usually does. Find guys who can play with energy and effort and put them in the game. Tonight it was Yuki, Dalen, even Okoro. He put up 20. Ayo, of course, is going to be Ayo. We're going to have a serious conversation about Modest and those turnovers. But he had a big three, so it's all about the big shots at the end of the game. And if you make it, hey, all the other things, get washed away. But right now, I need to see this team do some, continue to play with heart. And I need AK to look deep inside himself and to not do what it is instincts to do, and that's to do nothing at the trade deadline. You have to make a move. You have to get bigger up front. You have to get more aggressive. And to answer anyone's doubts, yes, I am a firm believer that you should trade Coby because he's not worth $30 million a year. That's what he's going to be asked for in offseason, and I don't think he should get it. But what's your opinion? Thanks.
Is Coby White worth $30 million? I would say this. I came into the season saying that if Coby White built off the way that he finished last season, those are the players that when you look around players around the league, those players get paid $30 million. Unfortunately, Coby's having a terrible season. And while he's still averaging, 18 points per game, The efficiency's not there. The turnovers are at an all-time high. He is getting to the free throw line better, but it's at this point, Coby's probably more like a $22 to $25 million player. That's just the reality of it. He's still going to command that because it's still of his ability to score, his first time being out on the market, those type of things. But Coby at this point, asking for $30 million, man, it's going to be rough for him to get it. And we'll see what that happens and where that leaves him at with the Chicago Bulls. We shall see. We shall see. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode, man. I appreciate you guys so much, man. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling about the Chicago Bulls, the options, the Karl-Anthony Towns thing that just popped up that I did not expect at all. Let me know what you guys think about this at all. Do you trust the Chicago Bulls? Or let me not say that because nobody trusts this team. Do you think the Chicago Bulls can actually find a direction at this trade line, and will they? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at Bull Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.